Hello, welcome to Sterlo's Wrap.
Oh, straight rhythm!
Bank, take advantage of it.
Oh, stand and applaud!
It's a stupid question.
It's
I
not!
have far greater expectations of you than that.
Oh, yes! He's gone all the way!
Now, he's popular, he's a great leader, he's the mentality of this football team.
Oh, and another one from Cleary!
Well, it doesn't get much better, does it?
Absolutely outstanding, and the finish is just as good!
It's rugby league, isn't it?
Hello, welcome to Sterlo's Wrap for another week. Pete, a few big scorelines over the weekend. Tackling was a bit out of fashion in some of those games.
I think we've said that pretty much every week, haven't we, Matt? Once one team gets on top, it's almost like a deluge and games are out of reach fairly quickly. A couple of tight games as well, which were nice. And we did have a number of our top sides play against each other. And some interesting results there as well as we go through them. But third of the way through the season, and that logjam around 8th position is something I think we'll see for pretty much the rest of the season.
Absolutely. So if your team started poorly this year, if you can notch a couple of wins together, doesn't matter where you are on the ladder, you're not going to be far away from the top 8.
Well, you have a look at some of those sides between, say, 7 and 11. Now, they've had poor starts to the season, and yet a number of them are outside the top 8 on differential.
All right, let's start our review of the matches at the weekend with the match at Brookvale yesterday. Seagulls 38, Warriors 32. Speaking of big score lines, there was points raining down there on the peninsula. The Warriors scored first, but Tommy Turbo went bang, bang. The Warriors with a bit of a resurgence at one stage in the game there, but wow, what a performance from Turbo. 2 tries, 4 try assists. I think Andrew John said to us during our call yesterday at Cogra it was maybe his most dominant club performance ever, but we've been saying that week in, week out. What a return from injury.
Yeah, it was a seesawing affair, this one, and, you know, it's hard to deny that the story out of this game was Tom Trbojevic. He was that good, and he was the difference. I think he scored 2 on debut, 2 in his 50th game, and he got 2 in his 100th as well, but then was involved, as you point out, on in a number of their tries. And since coming back into the side, you know, they are just a completely different proposition against a Warriors side who I thought started the game fairly well, and they built up a decent lead, but just couldn't get the job done. This young man there that just scored that try, Jason Saab, came up with a couple of really good plays late as well, one under a high kick and one a try-saving tackle. But Trbojevic, absolutely outstanding. The amazing thing is, I don't think he'll have the number 1 jersey when it comes to State of Origin football. Tedesco will be the number 1. Trbojevic, I think, will be selected on the wing. Latrell Mitchell obviously comes right back into contention. He'll have 2 games before the side is chosen. I think he'll grab a spot as well. And Ryan Pappenhausen is a lay-down misère for the number 14-15 jersey. So again, we are going to have a lot of starting fullbacks for their respective sides involved. Last year we had Clint Gutherson also there as well. So
what are you going to do with the right centre position? Because Latrell is a left centre, obviously playing fullback now, but is known primarily as a left centre. You've got to find someone on the right. It seemed like Zach Lomax was the man that had been earmarked for that position, but he won't be available for the first game.
I'm going with Jack Whiten. You know, I know that the Canberra Raiders aren't going well, and Whiten probably not at his best, but I think you put him in that company. We know what he can do at this level. He's a big body. He can kick the football, and he knows what Origin is all about.
We're prefacing your comments by saying that you've got Jerome Lewis at 5'8", of course.
I do. I can't split Luai and Nathan Cleary from what I've seen from them every week so far this year, and basically majority of last year as well. That combination taken into Origin. The fact that Jerome was also in the squad last year, so he kind of knows the environment as well. Look, I think Jerome Luai has actually overshadowed Nathan Cleary in half the games that they played this year. And when you consider how well Nathan Cleary's been playing, that's quite a statement. So I think, you know, he's got great claims there. And again, the combination of the two, they know their game so well. They're playing confident football. I think that's a great thing to take into Origin.
I love Jack White, and I'm just wondering if Jack Byrd might force his.
Oh, he's the other player that's right in contention. He's had a great start to the season. We asked Anthony Griffin about Jack Byrd before the game when they beat Canterbury, and he was saying that he's becoming very confident in his body.
Yeah, he looks fitter than he's ever looked.
He looks great. He looks great, and he's the kind of guy that, you know, if you didn't have a Ryan Pappenhausen, and you couldn't find him in your back line, you could put him off the bench very comfortably because he could play centre. He plays 5'8".
In fact, I think he did that in his maiden Origin series as
May
a
well have done.
player.
Yeah. So he's roared right back, especially on the back of Zach Lomax. But it's a big back line.
Pete, with all the injuries we've had, we'll sit in next Monday and
Exactly.
you'll have to repick your back line.
Yeah.
Don't pick your team too early.
Mate, that's half the fun of it. It's not for the players who are injured, but it's half the fun of it.
Well, let's hope James Tedesco, for New South Wales fans that is, doesn't find himself on the sidelines. He's wearing a Roosters jumper though, so there is every chance something might happen to him. Yeah. They've been cruelled by injury. Again, Drew Hutchison, we know the storylines around him. I think he's still in hospital with a punctured lung. Well, he was as of yesterday. Victor Radley with the HIA in the match against Parramatta, which the Eels won 31-18. A very controversial game, though.
It was, and the decision-making certainly didn't help the Roosters during the course of this game, but a gallant performance from them. Just want to have a look at Parramatta first up. They won the game, and you can only beat who you're up against. We know that the Roosters went in undermanned, but that's no fault of the Eels, who also lost Reid Marnie during the course of the game, and that's a huge blow. You take your starting dummy half out, that has an effect. They had to play Bryce Cartwright out of dummy half. Dylan Brown was in there as well, so that changes your structures. And in the end, it's a win over a top four side, and it maintains the record of the Eels only having lost once this season. But this is a game where there is plenty of fallout, especially in regards to what teams both of these sides can field next week. When you have a look at Drew Hutchison, obviously Lachlan Lamb I think is close to coming back. Victor Radley I thought was a huge blow for them. I thought Victor Radley was causing all sorts of problems for Parramatta in that opening 10 minutes. So a lot came out of this game. A win for Parramatta, a gallant Roosters team, but repercussions for both in the coming weeks.
Hypothetically, and we'll never know, of course, had one of those Parramatta players been sin bin before half-time, does that potentially change the outcome of the game? Because the Eels, as you say, were so gallant, and it was only until the last 10 minutes where that game got away from them.
Look, I can't.
And we would have had the 18th man in Suwali.
It makes it harder. There's no doubt about that. But I think the one thing we have seen about Parramatta this year is they are resilient. I don't mind seeing Parramatta only go through and win the game in the last 10 minutes. I actually think it puts them in really good stead for later on down the track. Yes, we're kind of sitting there waiting for the points to come because the opposition are tired. They've had no football, they've had no field position. And, the field goal really was what wrapped things up for when Mitchell Moses, I thought under plenty of pressure, again, a really good sign of his game management skills this year. He nailed that, and he needed to, because the last thing that he wanted to do was miss that, give the opposition 20-metre head start plus an extra tackle, because there was only that converted try margin in it. And Dylan Brown went through against some very tired defence very, very late. But I don't mind that. I'm happy to see Parramatta. I know that all the stuff about injuries and sin binnings and all of those kind of things, they still got the job done.
They did.
And the Roosters, again, just showed how strong and resilient their club is, and they'll need to call on that because their troops are getting very thin.
And Dylan Brown suspended, so to Niokore. Is Wonga Blake back?
No, I don't believe this week. Obviously, we'll find out a little bit later in the week as to his availability. He's not far away. I think the other guy too, and I need to check on this. I'm not sure if Will Smith is available as well. I think he might be on the injured list also. So might be a couple of young faces come in for Parramatta that basically Brad Arthur, I say has a choice, probably will elevate sooner than he would have liked. So as we say, it was a great game to watch. If you were a neutral observer, you would have just enjoyed every second of it. It was great, physical, but it is going to affect what we see from both clubs in the coming weeks.
Melbourne Storm 50, South Sydney 0. Where do you want to go?
Are you going to bring it up? Are you going to bring it up that I said that the South Sydney side wouldn't get beaten by Melbourne?
I actually forgot.
But
I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Well, it made me look like a fool, the scoreline.
Oh, you didn't need that.
No, that's true. In my defence, if I think 4 of South Sydney's leading 6 players weren't available. Like Cameron Murray, the impact that he has, obviously Adam Reynolds is probably the biggest one. No Latrell Mitchell and no Campbell Graham. And I think we saw how deficient they were in the areas that those players mainly contribute in. But a outstanding performance from the Melbourne Storm. I was always very, very keen at the start of the season to see how the Harry Grant, Brandon Smith rotation was going to work as to whether it was going to put somebody's nose out of joint because they weren't the starting number 9. But it's been seamless, hasn't it?
It's worked so well that Melbourne haven't missed Cameron Smith.
Cameron Smith.
You would have thought after 6 to 10 weeks of the comp, we'd be sitting here going, well, Melbourne can't win it. They miss Cameron Smith too much. His influence on the team has been so profound they can't fill in. They haven't missed him at all.
We say the same thing. No Cooper Cronk. Jerome Hughes is just about the form halfback in the competition. Billy Slater leaves. Ryan Pappenhausen bursts onto the scene. So that their transition and obviously eye for the future is superb. And the guy I want to throw in as well, Justin Hollam.
Yeah.
Now, Justin Hollam, when he first sort of came into great, he was just this guy who got the football and charged into the defence with no sense of self-preservation whatsoever. And he was equally as damaging with and without the football. What about that kick there, the left foot kick, and gets it absolutely perfect. That takes deft touch to get that right. So Justin Hollam is now a premier centre three-quarter in the competition. There's more, maybe you don't see it necessarily, but there's more subtlety in his game, which is not the word that we would have associated with his performance. But defensively, he is so strong and he runs great lines with the football. So it really is not just running hard into the opposition. There's a science to it, and he's just developed into a class centre three-quarter.
We might have to do a bit of research because Justin Hollam is a Papua New Guinean international.
Yes.
But with all the eligibility changes in terms of second-tier nations, can Justin Hollam play Origin?
Oh, don't ask me. I don't know.
I'm
still confused by it as well.
Could you imagine if he's available for Queensland?
I would be surprised. Oh, please. Well, he's not available. Okay, that can't happen. The other thing out of this game, of course, was the remarkable performance of Josh Adokar. 6 tries. I made the point that I didn't get that many in my career. He gets them in one evening. I think the most important thing about the tries from Josh Adokar, it was his pure speed that allowed him maybe 4 of them. So I don't think a lot of other wingers actually scored these tries. Maybe 3, where it was just the blinding speed that enabled him enough room to cross in the corner. I think other wingers would have been gobbled up or, last gasp try-saving tackles on them, which they might not have got across. He was pretty much untouched when he went over. And he is just such an advantage to have. When you've got speed like that and you can impose it on the opposition, straight away in the back of the opposition's minds, you put them on the back foot to some degree. And I love teams when you've got a Josh Adokar who kick early, because that does impose them on the opposition defence, and straight away they've got to be thinking about it. So all of a sudden they will drop back early, which means you can then run the football at a shortened defence.
Great point.
So when you've got pace like that, you can utilise it mentally and physically out on the field. And Adokar, 6 tries, phenomenal effort. And if you're sitting there as a State of Origin coach, again, Josh Adokar just gives you great confidence that if there's a half break, it'll be turned into 4 to 6 points.
Indeed. Well, the desperation game of the weekend was Newcastle versus Canberra. Let's start with the good news. Newcastle, after whispers that there was dissatisfaction amongst the playing group behind the scenes last week when they were thumped, they've been able to reverse their form. They trailed at half-time. They won 24-16 against the Raiders. So that's the positive for Newcastle, firstly.
Well, they trailed at half-time. They trailed by 16 and looked like they were almost game over because Canberra were playing quite well. But when you trail by that at half-time, the most important thing to come out in that second half is to grab the initiative. And they did it immediately. This was a brilliant play. I think it's great coaching because I think they're set up for that. They have seen on the video that Canberra stand deep from restarts, and Kalen Ponga straight into the path of Lachlan Fitzgibbon, who I thought had a wow of a game, first game back for the Newcastle Knights. Now, straight away, that got them on the front foot. And I don't think that they relinquished that basically for the next 40 minutes. But they, if you kick the ball long, Canberra bring it back, they get into a bit of a routine, they kick the ball back to you. Newcastle probably would have thought that they're going to be bringing the ball out from their own line in their first set, maybe 10, 15 metres out. Well, instead of that, because of that very, very clever play, they were on the attack immediately. They scored not long afterwards and they got some momentum going. And the 16, they reeled in I won't say comfortably, but they had the momentum, and it always looked like they were going to in that second 40, especially considering what we've seen from the Canberra Raiders in the previous month.
And their desperation to save the game late when Canberra were on the attack. It was a team that was playing for each other and knew they had to win at all costs.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about it, apart from that, was the desperation shown with effort plays late in this game. And we've got a series of them here. This effort, a break made by Jordan Rapiner. Now, a stack of space there. He opts to kick down here. But just have a look who's on the inside and cleans up the bouncing ball in front of the closest Canberra chase. That's Jaden Brayley. He's travelled 60, 70 metres to get back there. Late in the game again, there's only a 2-point margin. Danger down the side. Simonson has the ball stripped from Stafford Toa.
Yeah,
Great play, huge play. And then the other winger, in a show of desperation as well, he wants that ball on the ground more than anybody else. That's Jaden Musgrave, who actually leaves the field injured as a result of diving on that loose ball. So there's two rookie wingers who've come up with big plays. Jaden Brayley, who's played very little football for the Newcastle Knights, is one of their co-captains, a display of leadership as well. That's how you get home in those kind of matches, on effort plays, and it was from guys who haven't played a lot of first-grade football, although Brayley's been up there for a while, but he hasn't played a lot for the Newcastle Knights. I thought it was a great display. We can't go on without talking about the Raiders.
Well, I want to put a particular question to you to lead into this discussion about the Raiders. In your experience as a player, if a team is leaking so many points in a second half repeatedly, what does it tell you?
I think it's a mental thing now. I think they actually start to think, if something goes against them, oh, here we go again. Well documented over the weekend, 93 points to 8, their second halves in the last 5 weeks. They have scored 8 points and conceded 93. And in the last 3 matches, they led at half time. So they were well placed to go on and win those games. Even against Penrith, the scoreline wasn't a blowout, after 40 minutes. So I think it becomes a mental thing. I don't know whether it becomes a lack of confidence then. We keep talking about the individuals down there who seem to have a problem of some degree. Ricky keeps telling us it's a happy dressing shed. What you're reading, it's great. It makes good fodder in the press, but it's not a problem down here. You've got to think that it's got to have some kind of influence when you've got arguably your best player standing down for a weekend, as Papali'i did last week, when George Williams, is struggling. If you're not happy off the field, that transcends and affects your performance.
So there are some comments today.
Josh
Michael
Hodgson.
Chammis in the Sydney Morning Herald in the Nine Press has actually tracked down John Bateman over in the UK. And he's made, I thought, quite a startling accusation that in his time at the club, he witnessed leaking from some of the backroom staff from the Raiders. And that some of the stuff that was in confidence within the confines of the club made its way into the papers 2 and 3 days later. He's saying that a lot of this stuff that is being made public is, which is undermining the team, isn't coming from the players, it's coming from staff.
Well, if John Bateman found that out, surely Ricky Stewart would have to know. And if you're leaking any information out of a club, you're gone straight away. Now, I don't know if anybody has been moved on, but I would find it very unusual if John Bateman would be privy to that kind of information and the coach wouldn't suss it out. Like, Ricky's over things fairly well. So, look, it's a big test of coaching now from Ricky to get his side back on track. They are still close enough because, as we said, that you win 2 or 3 games and you propel yourself up fairly quickly up this premiership ladder. But it's not just necessarily the losses, it's the way they've lost. That's a concern. And they just need to turn the conversation around about what's happening at the club to some positivity, because it's all negative coming out of the camp at the moment.
Well, they play the Bulldogs in Magic Round, and with all due respect to the Bulldogs, Canberra will be very short price favourites. I'm just wondering if they can win that, whether that might be a circuit breaker to try and get some of that positivity.
You've got to draw a line in the sand, and I thought it would be last week, especially 16-0 at half time. Well, it becomes even more important this weekend.
Right, Cowboys 19, Broncos 18. It's a throwback to those few years of the brilliant North Queensland Broncos games with dramatic finishes.
I loved it. I thought it was a great game. I thought they were home. the Broncos. I think it's the 7th time in the meetings between these two clubs that 1 point has been the margin, and there's been some absolute thrillers, and this was right up there with the very best, because I thought both sides played well. And after dusty starts to the season, I think we've seen improvement in their performances in recent weeks. I thought Brisbane had done well enough. I thought Payne Haas, Matt Lodge, Pangai, Bullimore were very, very good. And it took some steel to be shown by the Cowboys to get out of trouble in this one. And the young man I do want to mention, because I would say that it would have been a tough few weeks for him when you consider Chad Townsend signed and then an extension for Scott Drinkwater, is Jake Clifford. 23 years of age, he signed with the Newcastle Knights for 2 seasons. This was a match-winning play because it got the side down into position for Jason Taumalolo to score under the post and pretty much wrap things up. I think there's a lot of upside in Jake Clifford. And I think...
Knights obviously agree with you.
Whilst it will give Todd Payton plenty of heartache, the more games like that Jake Clifford can get under his belt before the end of the season. So tight games where you've got to get it right, that will help his career. Jake Clifford just needs to improve his decision making, and especially when it comes to the kicking game. But I think there's a quality player in there. I think that we've only scratched the surface. And with Mitchell Pearce coming towards the end of his career and injuries starting to play a role, Blake Green in that category as well. I thought Phoenix Crossland did a good job there as well, so he'll be a nice battle between Jake and Phoenix maybe for that 7th spot down the track. I like what I see from Clifford in glimpses. We just need to see more of it now. Now, the other blow, of course, coming out of this game for the Brisbane Broncos was confirmation, I think confirmed on the Footy Show actually, was Xavier Coates heading to the Melbourne Storm. We'd heard that it was going to happen.
It'd be heartbreaking for a Brisbane fan.
Well, he's the next big thing, Matt. He, even in their down times, this guy has been a ray of sunshine. He's got it all. He's a try scorer. He's got great speed. Defensively, he's good. In the air, absolutely outstanding. A couple of these takes here, they were difficult. But, the good players make the difficult look easy, or easier than what they actually are. And to lose a young player of this quality for the Brisbane Broncos, having gone through what they have in recent times, the wooden spoon last year, Reece Walsh going as well. It's a coup for the Melbourne Storm, who lose Josh Adokar. They replace him with Xavier Coates. We spoke earlier about the Melbourne and their transition, how they plan for the future, a succession plan. He's part of a great succession plan for the Melbourne Storm. Big loss for the Broncos.
Hats off to Kevy Walters, though, to turn Brisbane around to a large degree, a win against the Titans, and they came within a handful of minutes of winning consecutive games. It shows that the Broncos have the capacity to be competitive for the rest of the year.
They're going in the right direction. And talent, we say it every week, talent has never been in question. It's just a matter of directing that in the right manner and getting a consistent 80-minute performance. I think Tyson Gamble has helped. I thought he was good again this weekend. Absolutely. I thought they had this game won. So kudos to both teams, and especially to the North Queensland Cowboys to find the will and the ability to win this game at the death. Dragons
32, Bulldogs 12. A lamentable afternoon at Cogra. It wasn't much of a game, Pete.
No, look, it wasn't. With all due respect to both teams, a lot of errors in these games and a lot of unforced errors, especially early in the tackle camp, made it almost impossible for either camp to build pressure. In the end, 20-point margin. I think the difference was the 6 and the 7 from the Dragons. I think both Ben Hunt and Corey Norman are showing great signs this year that their combination is blossoming. I think they clearly enjoy the coaching of Anthony Griffin. He's had a lot to do with Ben Hunt during his career, also Andrew McCulloch as well. But, I love the 7 passing to the 6 and the 6 to the 7 in unstructured play. Yes, there is structure around it, but, that play they combined there. Ben Hunt goes into dummy half, plays one side, goes the other, throws a cutout pass to score the try. That's the halves setting that up, and it's not something that they planned for necessarily at training. Well, it's not as though we go up here and this is what we'll do on second play, third play. And what you will see a lot of, which bugs the out of me, Matt, is halves who will pass the football and then they will stop and get ready to get in position for the next play. The most important play is the one that's on now. And that's what we're talking about, structure and playing with, blinkers on, is that They will go one way to get somewhere, but if there's an offload, you've got to be there for it. Now if players are going forward, you've got to be pushing up, ready for some second phase play. You can't do that if you are passing the football and then getting set for what, in your head, we've trained for to be, well, this is where we're going on second and third. We don't see that often from Hunt and Norman. I thought they were the difference.
We didn't see any of that from Canterbury, and that was one of the contributing factors to Cole Flanagan being hooked at half time. Pete, is his career at a bit of a crossroads now? Shown the door by the Roosters, signed by Canterbury amongst great positivity, but obviously they've only won one game this year, and for him to be, for the prized signing to be hooked at half time is a pretty dramatic move by Trent Barrett.
Well, a crossroads at this time it's harsh, but it's, the very fact that you're taken out of this contest when the game was still winnable, it's not a great sign. So I still think he's probably going to be, their best option, but they've got to get more out of him. And I think his understanding of the game, the knowledge of what is needed, has to increase quickly. And it's those things that I was just talking about. They had a couple of forwards there who dented the line.
Oh, yeah.
Kyle has got to be in their slipstream. And then who knows what can come from that, look, crossroads.
You're seeing him play too much structure and not enough playing what he sees.
Absolutely. And he's not the only halfback that I would accuse of that as well. But in a side that is struggling to score points, is struggling to compete against the best sides, then he's got to be better because of the number on his back, which is not easy at his age. And, he's an inexperienced halfback, but he did have pretty much a full season at the Roosters, so, should have learnt plenty there. He's just got to work out where he can be more effective for his football team, and he needs the coach to point that out as well.
What does it do, though, to a halfback to be hooked at half time in terms of confidence? I mean, it must be shattering. It's a public execution in many respects.
Well, to be hooked at any stage, but to be hooked as a playmaker, as I say, when the game is on the line, where you are part of your assignment is to get the job done in those instances. So, I'd like to think that he'd have a good chat to his dad, Shane, who obviously is a first grade premiership winning coach, and I think, would be able to steer him and give him good advice. So he's got a nice sounding board there. I don't know if that happens or not, but I think if I was Kyle, I'd be going to Dad and saying, take your hat off as my father and give me some advice as to, what you think I should be doing better. Trent Barrett becomes very important as well. But it's a tough situation. I don't think I was ever hooked. I know I played some very poor games and paid the price for that in some shape or form. I got dropped to reserve grade a couple of times. So, it dents your confidence, but you've just got to come back stronger. You've got to work on your game and come back stronger.
Other results from the weekend: Titans 36, Tigers 28. Michael Maguire ranting and raving again. You told me yesterday at the footy, which I found very interesting, is that Jack Gibson never raised his voice as a coach.
No, well, in the 3 years that I was coached by him, and having said that, we had a lot of success during that.
Well, you did win three premierships in 3 years.
But there were times where there's no doubt in the world. I've said before, he didn't come down at halftime in a grand final to talk to us because there was nothing needed to be said. But no, I come, and I wonder how much Wayne Bennett has called upon the spray, during the course of his career. I actually found with Jack Gibson and his coaching, the quieter he got, the more intimidating and therefore the more significant his address was. But every coach has their own way, and Phil Gould has said before that you've got a couple in you that you can't waste.
I've got to say, of all the coaches I've seen in my time watching and being involved in the game, I reckon Gus would have to be the scariest. If Gus lost it, I reckon I'd be hiding under the table.
Yeah. Craig Bellamy could be fairly
you get used to that. If Gus lost it, I'd start crying.
What I do find interesting about Craig Bellamy is the players will tell you that what we see on the cameras during the course of the game and the explosions that can happen, they don't transfer down into the shed. He actually gets it out of the system upstairs and comes down. Yes, he'll
takes his blood pressure tablets before he goes down.
Well, I think that's interesting that you vent that kind of emotion, but you don't necessarily carry it down into the sheds, especially not all of the time. But yeah, we have seen some very animated efforts from coaches
But you
so
do think
far
Gus
this
would be
year.
scary, don't you?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you would. Yeah.
All right. Now, some interaction here on Sterlo's Wrap. Next week, sending you questions. You can put your comments below. That's what they've told me to do, to point below, because the comments are below.
Keep them simple, please. I'm not.
Nothing about Pete's hair.
Yeah. Keep them like
nothing
me, short and
derogatory
simple,
about me.
please.
Yeah. And we'll pick out the best ones to ask Pete.
Good fun.
And they'll be only the really nasty ones that I'll be reading out.
Mate.
Thanks, mate.
I've got a prediction.
Oh, dear. Right.
I'm going magic round.
Yep.
I think on the back of what we've seen this week, I'll say 3 sin binnings during the course of the weekend.
Enjoy your footy. We'll talk to you after Magic Round.